The morning sun cast long shadows across the Terran Defense Command Center as Admiral Chen reviewed the tactical displays. 3 months had passed since first contact with the Zephyrian Empire, and the news grew worse each day. Their ships moved like deadly dancers through space, their weapons technology far beyond anything humanity had developed. Most concerning were their ground forces, led by 3 brilliant military minds who had conquered 17 star systems without losing a single engagement. Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez adjusted her rifle scope for the 100th time that morning. The weapon felt familiar in her hands, a custom-built precision instrument that had served her well through countless missions on Earth and now on this distant world of Kepler 442b. The other Marines in the forward observation post gave her space, understanding that snipers needed their rituals, their moments of preparation. The base buzzed with nervous energy. Intelligence reports indicated that General Vexthar, General Krindal, and General Thasara would be conducting a joint inspection of their forward positions today. These 3 had orchestrated every major victory against human forces, their tactical genius unmatched across known space. The alien generals moved like ghosts, never staying in one place long enough for orbital strikes, never exposing themselves to conventional attacks. Commander Jake Harrison of the Navy SEALs stood before the holographic display, his weathered face grim as he studied the terrain maps. The Zephyrian command post sat nestled in a valley 3 kilometers from the human lines, protected by energy shields and surrounded by automated defense systems. The aliens had chosen their position well, with clear sight lines in all directions and multiple escape routes. Maya approached the command table, her footsteps silent on the metal flooring. She had earned her place here through skill and dedication, rising through the ranks despite the skepticism she had faced early in her career. Some had questioned whether someone of her build could handle the physical demands of long-range reconnaissance. Those doubts had been silenced on the moons of Jupiter, where her shots had saved an entire research station from pirate raiders. The intelligence officer, Lieutenant Park, spread additional photos across the table. The images showed the 3 Zephyrian generals in their distinctive armor, each bearing the markings of their respective commands. Vexthar commanded the Northern Front, his forces having crushed human defenses on 4 separate worlds. Krindal led the Eastern Advance, known for his brutal efficiency and tactical innovations. Thasara controlled orbital operations, coordinating devastating strikes from above. Commander Harrison studied the photos intently. His own missions had taken him behind enemy lines twice, gathering intelligence on Zephyrian capabilities. Each time, he had barely escaped with his life. The aliens seemed to anticipate human tactics, always staying one step ahead of conventional military thinking. Maya examined the terrain analysis, noting wind patterns and elevation changes. The shot would require threading between 2 defensive towers, each equipped with sensors capable of detecting movement at enormous distances. The target zone measured roughly 50 meters across, with multiple levels and platforms where the generals might appear. Traditional wisdom suggested that such a shot was impossible, even with the most advanced human weapons. The briefing continued as more officers gathered around the table. General Morrison, commanding the Terran ground forces, outlined the strategic importance of the mission. Removing the 3 generals would create chaos in Zephyrian command structure, potentially buying humanity the time needed to develop new defensive strategies. Every simulation showed the same result, though conventional attacks would fail before getting within effective range. Maya listened carefully as the tactical experts debated various approaches. Some suggested using orbital bombardment, but the energy shields made that ineffective. Others proposed infiltration teams, but Zephyrian security protocols had proven impenetrable. The discussion grew heated as options were exhausted, one by one. The observation post sensors detected movement in the valley below. Through high-powered telescopes, the command team watched as Zephyrian transports began arriving at the enemy base. The aliens moved with precise coordination, their formations indicating that something significant was about to occur. Intelligence had been correct. This would be the day of the joint inspection. Maya felt the familiar calm that preceded difficult shots. Her breathing slowed automatically as she entered the mental state that had served her well on dozens of missions. The mathematics of long-range shooting became second nature: wind speed, humidity, target movement, bullet drop over extreme distances. Each variable could mean the difference between success and failure. Commander Harrison continued studying the tactical situation. His experience told him that conventional approaches would fail catastrophically. The Zephyrian defensive positions were simply too well prepared, their technology too advanced. Human forces had learned this lesson repeatedly over the past months, losing ships and personnel in failed attempts to match alien capabilities through brute force. The command center fell quiet as everyone processed the magnitude of the challenge. 3 kilometers of hostile territory separated them from targets that could end the war or at least change its trajectory. The enemy knew humanity was watching, knew that desperation might drive foolish attacks. They had positioned themselves to exploit that desperation, turning human aggression against itself. Maya walked to the observation window, studying the distant valley through her own eyes rather than electronic displays. Something felt different about this mission, as if all her training and experience had led to this moment. The weight of expectation pressed down on everyone in the room, but she found it strangely comforting. Pressure had always brought out her best performance. The morning briefing concluded with no clear plan of action. Traditional military doctrine offered no solutions for the current tactical problem. The generals were simply too well protected, too careful, too aware of human limitations. As the officers dispersed to their duties, Maya remained at the observation post, watching and waiting for an opportunity that might never come. 2 hours after the morning briefing, Maya positioned herself at the advanced observation post. Her rifle rested on a custom stabilization system she had designed herself, incorporating lessons learned from countless missions across human space. The weapon represented the pinnacle of human engineering combined with personal modifications that reflected years of field experience. The Zephyrian base showed increased activity as more transports arrived. Through her scope, Maya could see alien soldiers moving with purpose, establishing additional security perimeters and checking defensive systems. The enemy took no chances when their top commanders gathered in one location. Their precautions made perfect sense from a military perspective. Commander Harrison joined her at the observation position, bringing updated intelligence reports. Signals intercepts suggested the meeting would occur within the next 4 hours, during the local afternoon when visibility would be optimal for long-range surveillance. The irony was not lost on either of them. The same conditions that favored observation also favored precise shooting. Maya adjusted her position carefully, finding the angle that provided the clearest line of sight through the defensive gaps. The Zephyrian towers created overlapping fields of fire, but their placement followed logical patterns that could be analyzed and potentially exploited. Human tactical thinking might be predictable, but it also included the ability to find solutions others considered impossible. The rifle's advanced targeting system integrated atmospheric data with ballistic calculations, providing real-time updates on shooting conditions. Wind patterns shifted regularly in the valley, creating challenges that required constant adjustment and adaptation. Maya had spent years mastering the art of reading natural indicators that electronic systems might miss. Through her earpiece, Maya listened to communications between various observation posts. Human forces had positioned surveillance teams at multiple locations, creating a comprehensive intelligence network that monitored enemy movements. The coordination impressed even veteran officers who had fought in previous wars, demonstrating how quickly humanity could adapt to new tactical requirements. Commander Harrison studied the defensive layout through his own binoculars, noting details that might prove crucial if extraction became necessary. SEAL training emphasized preparation for multiple scenarios, including those where missions went catastrophically wrong. The Zephyrian base offered limited escape routes for any human forces that might become trapped in the valley. Maya felt her heartbeat slow to its normal pre-mission rhythm. Years of training had taught her body to respond automatically to high-stress situations, maintaining the steady control necessary for precision work. She had learned early in her career that emotional regulation was just as important as physical skill when dealing with extreme-range targets. The command center updated all positions with new intelligence about Zephyrian movements. Reconnaissance satellites detected patterns suggesting the meeting would occur in the central command tower, a structure that offered protection but also created specific visibility windows. The aliens had chosen their location well, but they had also created the only opportunity for a successful engagement. Through her scope, Maya watched alien soldiers conducting routine patrols around the perimeter. Their movements showed discipline and training, but also revealed patterns that could be exploited by someone willing to wait for the right moment. Patience had always been one of her strongest assets, separating her from snipers who relied primarily on technology rather than judgment. The afternoon sun began its descent toward the western mountains, creating shadows that would shift the dynamics of the tactical situation. Maya tracked these changes automatically, adjusting her calculations to account for varying light conditions and their effect on target identification. The mathematics of long-range shooting became more complex as multiple variables changed simultaneously. Commander Harrison received updates from his team leaders positioned around the valley perimeter. Each group reported similar observations: heavy security, multiple defensive layers, and no obvious weaknesses in Zephyrian preparations. The enemy had learned from previous encounters with human forces, adapting their tactics to counter known capabilities. Maya's spotter, Corporal Williams, arrived with additional ammunition and updated weather data. The young Marine had worked with her on previous missions, developing the silent communication methods essential for effective sniper teams. Their partnership had evolved through shared experiences in hostile environments, creating trust that went beyond normal military relationships. The rifle's barrel had been manufactured using techniques developed specifically for extreme-range applications. Maya had personally supervised its construction, ensuring that every component met specifications that exceeded standard military requirements. She understood that extraordinary missions demanded extraordinary equipment, matched with extraordinary skill. Through intercepted communications, intelligence teams detected increased activity in the Zephyrian command structure. Multiple frequencies carried encrypted messages suggesting that the three generals were coordinating their arrival times to minimize exposure risks. The aliens had studied human capabilities and developed countermeasures designed to exploit perceived limitations. Maya maintained her position as hours passed, occasionally adjusting equipment settings to account for changing environmental conditions. Long-range shooting required absolute precision in every detail, from weapon maintenance to personal comfort. She had learned to remain motionless for extended periods while maintaining complete readiness for instant action. Commander Harrison coordinated with orbital surveillance teams monitoring the broader tactical situation. Human ships maintained position at the edge of the system, ready to provide support or evacuation if ground operations went wrong. The mission had attracted attention at the highest levels of military command, with multiple contingency plans prepared for various outcomes. The Zephyrian base showed signs of preparation for the high-level meeting. Additional guard posts activated along the perimeter, and electronic warfare specialists detected increased jamming signals designed to interfere with human communications. The enemy was taking every possible precaution to protect their most valuable strategic assets. Maya felt the familiar anticipation that preceded critical moments in long-range engagements. Her training had taught her to recognize the subtle signs that indicated when targets might present themselves, allowing her to prepare mentally and physically for opportunities that might last only seconds. Everything depended on being ready when those moments arrived. The afternoon shadows had grown longer when the first Zephyrian command transport approached the valley. Maya watched through her scope as the heavily armored vehicle descended toward the central landing platform, its escort fighters maintaining protective formations above. The enemy was taking no chances with the safety of their strategic commanders, but they were also following predictable patterns that could be analyzed and exploited. Commander Harrison monitored communications from multiple observation posts as human surveillance teams reported on enemy movements. The Zephyrians had established a complex security protocol that included electronic jamming, mobile patrols, and overlapping defensive fields. Their preparations demonstrated respect for human capabilities while also revealing potential weaknesses in their approach. Maya felt the weight of expectation from every human position watching the valley. Months of defeats had created a desperate need for some kind of victory, however small. The three generals represented more than military targets. They symbolized hope that humanity could find ways to compete against superior alien technology through superior human determination and skill. The first transport landed with precision that spoke to advanced piloting systems and careful preparation. Zephyrian soldiers immediately established additional security perimeters around the landing zone, their movements coordinated through communication methods that human intelligence had been unable to decrypt. The aliens had learned to adapt their tactics based on human surveillance capabilities. Through her earpiece, Maya listened to updates from intelligence teams analyzing the enemy's security arrangements. Each defensive layer had been positioned to counter specific human capabilities, creating overlapping fields of fire that would destroy conventional attack forces before they could reach effective range. The Zephyrians had studied human military doctrine and developed countermeasures for every known tactical approach. Commander Harrison studied the landing platform through high-powered optics, noting details that might prove crucial for mission planning. The Zephyrian base had been designed with multiple levels of protection, from energy shields to automated weapon systems to carefully positioned guard posts. Breaking through such defenses would require capabilities that conventional human forces simply did not possess. Maya adjusted her scope settings to account for heat shimmer rising from the valley floor. The afternoon sun had warmed the ground significantly, creating atmospheric distortions that could affect bullet trajectory over extreme distances. She had encountered similar conditions on other worlds, learning to compensate for environmental factors that most people never considered. The second transport approached the valley with an escort formation that included both atmospheric fighters and orbital support vessels. Human surveillance teams tracked multiple energy signatures moving in coordination with the main convoy, suggesting that the Zephyrians had deployed additional protective measures specifically for this high-level meeting. The enemy was demonstrating the same attention to detail that had made them so successful in previous engagements. Maya's breathing settled into the rhythm she had perfected over years of training and field experience. Each breath became part of her targeting process, timing exhales to coincide with natural pauses in her heartbeat. The human body created subtle vibrations that could affect precision at extreme ranges, but proper technique could minimize these factors to negligible levels. The Zephyrian command tower showed increased activity as personnel prepared for the arrival of their senior leadership. Through electronic intercepts, human intelligence teams detected communication patterns suggesting that the meeting would begin once all three generals had arrived and completed security briefings. The aliens were following protocols designed to minimize exposure time while maximizing coordination effectiveness. Commander Harrison coordinated with his team leaders to ensure that extraction routes remained clear and communication systems stayed operational. SEAL doctrine emphasized preparation for multiple contingencies, including scenarios where missions failed catastrophically and immediate evacuation became necessary. The current tactical situation offered limited options for escape if the enemy detected human operations in the valley. Maya felt her equipment respond to subtle adjustments as she fine-tuned every component of her shooting system. The rifle had been zeroed under similar conditions on the practice range, but field environments always introduced variables that required real-time adaptation. She had learned to trust her instincts while also maintaining precise attention to technical details that could determine mission success or failure. The third transport appeared on surveillance screens as it approached the valley from the northern mountains. Intelligence reports indicated this vehicle carried General Thesara, the tactical genius responsible for orbital operations that had devastated human space installations. Her presence at the meeting suggested that the Zephyrians were planning significant changes to their strategic approach. Through her scope, Maya observed the complex dance of security preparations as Zephyrian forces established final protective measures around the landing zone. Each movement followed predetermined patterns that demonstrated extensive training and careful coordination. The enemy had learned from previous encounters with human forces, adapting their methods to counter known capabilities while maintaining their own technological advantages. Commander Harrison received updates from orbital surveillance teams monitoring the broader tactical environment. Additional Zephyrian ships had moved into position around the planet, creating defensive layers that would prevent human reinforcements from reaching the surface if the mission went wrong. The enemy was taking comprehensive precautions that reflected their understanding of human desperation and unpredictability. Maya tracked atmospheric conditions through multiple sensors integrated into her targeting system. Wind speeds had stabilized somewhat, but the valley geography created microclimates that could change rapidly as air currents interacted with terrain features. Long-range shooting required understanding weather patterns at an almost intuitive level, predicting changes before they occurred. The command center transmitted final updates to all observation positions as the three Zephyrian transports converged on the central landing platform. Human forces had positioned surveillance teams to provide overlapping coverage of the target area, ensuring that any opportunity would be detected and exploited. Years of military development had led to this moment when human technology and determination would be tested against seemingly impossible odds. Maya settled into her final shooting position, every muscle relaxed yet ready for instant action. The mathematics of extreme-range shooting had become second nature through countless hours of training and field experience. She understood that the next few minutes would determine not just the success of the mission, but potentially the future of human resistance against the Zephyrian Empire. The three Zephyrian transports touched down simultaneously on different sections of the landing platform, their pilots executing a coordinated approach that minimized exposure time while maintaining security protocols. Maya watched through her scope as alien soldiers immediately established overlapping defensive positions around each vehicle, their movements precise and well-rehearsed. Commander Harrison studied the unfolding scene through his binoculars, noting how the Zephyrian security teams had positioned themselves to create interlocking fields of fire that would devastate any conventional attack. The aliens had clearly learned from their encounters with human tactics, adapting their procedures to counter known capabilities while maintaining their technological advantages. Through intercepted communications, intelligence teams detected the complex coordination required for such a high-level meeting. Multiple frequencies carried encrypted traffic as Zephyrian forces synchronized their security measures with orbital support elements. The enemy was demonstrating the same attention to detail that had made them so successful in previous military campaigns. Maya felt her heartbeat slow to its optimal rhythm as she entered the mental state that preceded difficult shots. Years of training had taught her to recognize the subtle physical and psychological changes that indicated readiness for extreme-range engagements. Her breathing became automatic, timed to work with rather than against the precision requirements of long-distance shooting. The first Zephyrian general emerged from the central transport, his distinctive armor immediately recognizable from intelligence briefings. General Vexthar moved with the confidence of someone who had never experienced defeat, his posture reflecting the tactical genius that had crushed human defenses on multiple worlds. Security personnel immediately surrounded him, creating a protective formation that blocked most sight lines to the target. Commander Harrison coordinated with his observation teams as they reported on enemy movements throughout the valley. Each Zephyrian position had been carefully chosen to provide mutual support while maintaining clear escape routes. The aliens understood the principles of defensive warfare, applying them with technological advantages that made conventional attacks nearly impossible. Maya tracked the general's movement through her scope, noting patterns in the security formation that might create brief opportunities for engagement. The Zephyrian guards moved with professional discipline, but they were also following predictable protocols that could be analyzed and potentially exploited. Human tactical thinking included the ability to find solutions that others considered impossible. The second transport opened to reveal General Krindal, the military strategist responsible for the Eastern Front campaigns that had cost humanity 3 entire star systems. His presence at the meeting confirmed intelligence assessments about the strategic importance of this gathering. The aliens were planning something significant, requiring coordination between their most capable commanders. Through her earpiece, Maya listened to updates from multiple surveillance positions as human forces maintained comprehensive observation of the enemy base. Each team reported similar observations, heavy security, multiple defensive layers, and no obvious weaknesses in Zephyrian preparations. The enemy had learned to respect human capabilities while maintaining overwhelming technological superiority. The third general, Thisara, emerged from her transport with an escort that included both ground forces and orbital liaison personnel. Her role in coordinating space-based operations had made her responsible for some of the most devastating attacks against human installations. Intelligence reports suggested that her tactical innovations had fundamentally changed how the Zephyrians conducted warfare. Maya adjusted her scope settings to account for the changing light conditions as the afternoon sun moved toward the western mountains. Shadows were beginning to shift across the valley floor, creating new patterns of concealment and exposure that could affect target identification at extreme ranges. Long-range shooting required constant adaptation to environmental changes that occurred throughout extended missions. Commander Harrison received updates from his team leaders positioned around the valley perimeter. Each group reported increased Zephyrian activity as additional security measures activated in response to the high-level meeting. The enemy was taking comprehensive precautions that reflected their understanding of human desperation and tactical unpredictability. The three generals converged on the central command tower, their security details merging into a unified protective formation that would normally make any kind of attack impossible. Maya watched through her scope as the alien commanders moved with the confidence of beings who had never faced effective opposition from human forces. Their arrogance might become the weakness that created opportunity. Through intelligence intercepts, human forces detected communications suggesting that the meeting would begin immediately upon completion of security sweeps. The Zephyrians were following protocols designed to minimize exposure while maximizing coordination effectiveness. Their procedures demonstrated the same tactical excellence that had made them so successful in conventional warfare. Maya felt the familiar calm that preceded critical moments in her military career. Her training had taught her to recognize when all variables aligned to create opportunities that might last only seconds. The mathematics of extreme-range shooting became second nature as environmental conditions, target movement, and weapon capabilities merged into a single moment of perfect preparation. Commander Harrison studied the tactical situation through multiple sensor feeds, analyzing enemy positions and potential complications that might arise during mission execution. His experience had taught him to prepare for scenarios where operations went wrong, ensuring that extraction routes remained available even if the primary mission failed catastrophically. The command tower's upper level showed activity as Zephyrian personnel prepared the meeting space for their senior leadership. Through electronic surveillance, human intelligence teams detected patterns suggesting that the conference would occur in a specific location that offered both security and communication capabilities. The aliens were creating the precise conditions that might allow for successful engagement. Maya settled into her final shooting position, every piece of equipment adjusted for optimal performance under current environmental conditions. The rifle had been zeroed for exactly these circumstances, but field environments always introduced variables that required real-time adaptation. She had learned to trust both her technical training and her instinctive understanding of long-range shooting dynamics. The three Zephyrian generals approached the entrance to the command tower, their combined presence representing the strategic leadership responsible for humanity's recent military defeats. In moments, they would disappear into the protected interior of the building, potentially removing any opportunity for successful engagement. The window of possibility was measured in seconds rather than minutes. Commander Harrison spoke quietly into his communication system, updating all human positions on the developing tactical situation. His voice carried the tension that every person felt while watching events that could determine the future course of the war. Everything had led to this moment when human capability would be tested against seemingly impossible odds. Commander Harrison lowered his binoculars and shook his head with the finality of someone who had assessed impossible odds too many times. The three Zephyrian generals stood clustered near the entrance to the command tower, surrounded by layers of security that would stop any conventional attack before it could begin. His voice carried decades of military experience when he spoke. No one can make that shot. 3 kilometers through overlapping defensive fields with multiple moving targets behind energy shields. It's tactically impossible. Maya never took her eye from the scope as she responded, her voice calm with the certainty that came from years of proving skeptics wrong. "Sir, requesting permission to attempt the engagement." The commander's expression showed the kind of patience reserved for subordinates who didn't understand the mathematical realities of warfare. "Sergeant, I've run the calculations myself. The defensive towers create intersecting kill zones, the energy shields deflect projectiles, and the range exceeds the effective capabilities of any human weapon system. This isn't about courage or skill, it's about physics." Through her scope, Maya watched the 3 generals pause at the tower entrance, their security details conducting final sweeps before allowing the commanders to enter the protected interior. The moment was approaching when opportunity would disappear entirely, possibly for months or years. She had seen similar situations before, when conventional wisdom declared victory impossible. "Sir, with respect, conventional calculations don't account for human adaptability," Maya said, her finger moving to the trigger guard in preparation. "The energy shields have a rotation cycle every 12 seconds. The defensive towers create overlapping fields, but there's a gap at precisely 1,400 meters that lasts for 3 seconds during shift change." Commander Harrison studied her with the expression of someone trying to decide whether he was dealing with exceptional insight or dangerous overconfidence. His own experience included missions that had failed because personnel had ignored tactical realities in favor of wishful thinking. The distinction between courage and recklessness often became clear only in retrospect. Maya continued her observation, tracking minute details that electronic systems might miss. "The generals are following a predictable movement pattern based on Zephyrian security protocols. In approximately 90 seconds, they'll pause for final identification verification at the tower entrance. That creates a window where all 3 targets will be stationary for roughly 8 seconds. The intelligence reports had mentioned such protocols, but Commander Harrison had dismissed them as irrelevant given the impossibility of exploiting such brief opportunities. He found himself reconsidering assumptions that had seemed mathematically certain only moments before. Maya's confidence suggested knowledge that went beyond standard tactical training. "Even if such a window exists," Harrison said carefully, "you're talking about 3 separate targets at extreme range under combat conditions. The first shot would alert their security systems, making subsequent engagements impossible. You'd have perhaps 2 seconds for 3 kills." Maya made subtle adjustments to her scope settings, compensating for atmospheric changes that had occurred during their conversation. "Sir, I've been tracking wind patterns and defensive rotations for the past 4 hours. The shot is possible with custom ammunition designed for extreme-range applications and a targeting sequence that accounts for security response times." The commander felt his certainty wavering as he considered possibilities he had initially dismissed. Maya's reputation included several engagements that had succeeded despite seemingly impossible odds. Her confidence wasn't based on bravado, but on careful analysis of factors that conventional tactical thinking might overlook. Through intercepted communications, the intelligence team detected increased activity in the Zephyrian command structure as the 3 generals prepared to enter the tower. Multiple frequencies carried encrypted messages coordinating final security measures before the high-level meeting began. The window of opportunity was approaching rapidly. Maya's breathing had settled into the precise rhythm that preceded her most difficult shots. Every muscle remained relaxed while maintaining complete readiness for instant action. Years of training had taught her to recognize when all variables aligned to create possibilities that existed only in narrow windows of time and space. Commander Harrison made the calculation that had defined his military career, weighing certain failure against impossible success. The conventional approach offered no hope of affecting the strategic situation. Maya's proposal represented the kind of desperate innovation that sometimes produced unexpected results when everything else had failed. "Sergeant, you have permission to attempt the engagement," Harrison said, his voice carrying both authorization and acceptance of probable failure. "All observation posts maintain surveillance and be prepared for immediate extraction if our position is compromised." Maya settled into her final shooting stance, feeling the rifle's weight distribute perfectly across her stabilization system. The weapon had been crafted specifically for situations like this, combining human engineering excellence with modifications based on field experience gained across multiple star systems. Everything had led to this moment when human determination would be tested against impossible odds. Through her scope, she watched the 3 Zephyrian generals approach the tower entrance in formation. Their security details moved with practiced efficiency, conducting final protocols before allowing the commanders to enter the protected interior. The mathematics of extreme-range shooting became second nature as Maya calculated trajectories, wind drift, and timing factors that would determine success or failure. The first general reached the identification scanner, pausing as required by security protocols. Maya's crosshairs settled on the target, her breathing synchronized with heartbeat rhythms that had been perfected through countless hours of training. The second general moved into position for his own identification verification. The third general approached the scanner as Maya's finger applied precise pressure to the trigger mechanism. 3 targets, impossible range, seconds to complete an engagement that conventional wisdom declared tactically impossible. Her scope revealed details invisible to electronic systems, showing the exact moment when all variables aligned to create opportunity within impossibility. The rifle spoke 3 times in rapid succession, each shot placed with precision that demonstrated the pinnacle of human marksmanship skills. Across 3 kilometers of hostile territory, through defensive systems designed to stop conventional attacks, Maya's bullets found their targets with mathematical certainty that transformed impossible calculations into tactical reality. 3 Zephyrian generals fell simultaneously as their security systems activated in confusion, searching for threats that had already accomplished their mission. In the observation post, Commander Harrison stared through his binoculars at a scene that redefined his understanding of human capabilities under impossible conditions. The war would continue, but humanity had proven that superior technology could be overcome by superior determination combined with exceptional skill. Maya Rodriguez had made a shot that no one believed possible, changing the strategic balance through individual excellence that embodied everything the Terran forces represented in their struggle against overwhelming odds.